Control, this is Agent Dev. I'm in position.
Copy that, Dev. Stand by for go.
Standing by.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for another episode of Agents of Dev. I'm Mitch Ashley. I lead the software lifecycle engineering practice at Futurum Group, as well as, techie and developer and whatever of the day of the week, which I think kind of fits, other than the practice name, similar for you. Brad Shimmin, my co-host. Good to see you, Brad.
Hey, Mitch. Hey, everybody. Yes. So similarly, I am analyst / practitioner / enthusiast / lamenter of the same interest sometimes, depending on what's happening. And I think, today's chat topic for us is one that probably Mitch and I would not be returning to, except we were clawed back in by that topic over the weekend.
Nice work. You have a future in broadcasting. That's awesome.
We really, I thought, we're moving forward in terms of, saying, okay, we get that this open claw phenomenon is, yes, a phenomenon, and it points to, we think, some very important ideas that will reshape or continue to shape, is a better way to put it, the AI landscape, both the consumer side and the enterprise side. However, my bingo card for this weekend did not have Sam Altman from OpenAI hire buying the OpenClaw founder, Peter Steinberger, for an undisclosed amount of money to run an undisclosed and undefined foundation to keep OpenClaw as an open source project, but to also greatly influence the way OpenAI builds software going forward. Fascinating times.
Brilliant move too, right? Duh. What a great thing to do. And good for Peter to make not only some fame, but hopefully some real good money at this. Kudos to him.
Agreed. Guerrilla marketing pays off, as we have discovered with this case study.
And it's more than just a YouTube channel with 1 million followers, but falls on its face when they go in an MAA ring, or some MMA ring, one of those kind of things. This is
figuratively.
Figuratively. Yeah, it's I think, I'm guessing maybe you thought this too. My thought was, okay, this is the claw moment. It'll bypass, and we'll all look at this. Would be a great case study of what happens when you give a lot of power and some capabilities, some really brilliant thinking, but unfettered of what it can do. And what do we learn from this? Well, I think we can still learn those things, but oh my God, it is I think before the show we were talking about, this is the new crypto of tech, right? It's the thing that everybody thought would die, but it's going to live on in infamy.
Yeah. Just trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro. Put anything at the end of bro and it's official.
Indeed. I mean, it literally happened to OpenClaw when Peter changed the account, when ironically Anthropic sent him a nice cease and desist letter for his use of OpenClaw. And the crypto bros swept in promptly, I think within 60 seconds of that domain name and account name switch, gobbled that up and started spewing out their marketing. Let's put it that way. And it is, and I say that that's the literal side, but we're also looking at this as a figurative crypto bro moment. In that, as I was just saying, with why would OpenAI swoop in to buy something that they've been working on with Codex for a while, just as Anthropic has with Claude, and also more recently with Cowork. Well, it's the eyeballs. It's like you said, Mitch. It's that investor momentum that really drives this marketplace. And to me, that is speculative in its finest sense. It's not technological in its entirety. Technology plays a part of it. It is meritocracy in that regard, in terms of why we're even talking about it. It's because, like you said, it does some really cool stuff, like with how it manages memory, for example. So, you treat your context window like RAM. So when we build software, RAM is this very precious commodity that you don't, just heap and stack that thing to death. You think about how you use it, and OpenClaw does that, and it does it pretty well. So it's good that it has that technology, but man, for me, I still feel like this is just that crypto bro, Chachki. Sorry, what's his name from the Fonz jumping the shark in that old timey TV series with Ron Howard.
God, that's going back. Yeah.
Moment.
So here's the thought about this. That if you analyze it this way, so you're sitting here building these massive companies based on tons of debt, and some kid, whoever he is, I don't know how old he is, some person comes along and like builds what you're trying to build, but did it over the weekend, right? Or, whatever time frame. But anyway, however long it took, kind of doesn't matter. It just took off virally. And all of a sudden, like, well, crap, that's what we were building. Well, if you're a really large tech company, you do what Anthropic does and says, stop, cease. We don't want you to do this. This is ruining our market. If you're an entrepreneur, you say, damn straight, let's go get this guy and get him on our team. And like, he's doing what we want to do. Maybe it's not the way we would do it, and it's certainly not perfect, but yeah, let's leapfrog the market. Let's hop onto this, on this viral thing and not only ride it for as long as it can, use that as a leapfrog to jump the place on the market. And there's a lot of criticism about OpenAI and not being, where they should be compared to Anthropic. So,
or Open,
it's pretty damn brilliant.
Yeah, and it's not their first foray into this approach. Did they not hire the brilliant designer from Apple with the same intent of building devices that were going to be beautifully designed? And we haven't quite seen those yet, but I know that's still happening.
Yeah, someday we'll see. But they always took a long time at Apple too, so it'll take a long time here, I guess.
Indeed,
it wasn't just Apple, I guess. Interesting. So let me ask you. Certainly, memory is one big innovation of how OpenClaw does things and does it in some really useful ways. I would propose to you that another really brilliant thing about it is it just opened the world of connectivity through all the channels. Whether you want to use Signal, whether you want to use Discord, you want to use
Telegram,
whatever. It'll talk to anything and everything, both output and input, egress and ingress. And it kind of just made it super easy to work in the world that you want to work in. So if you live in Slack and email, okay, yeah, you can do that too. But no, maybe you don't. Maybe you live in YouTube and Signal,
all of
and that's your world. Boom, you're there. I think that's another take the friction out of the system. Yeah, it'll talk to whatever you want, the file system, the SaaS application, to the clients that it talks to. I think that's really smart.
Yeah, it should. The technology should live where you live, as you're saying. And we sort of all have been cramming ourselves into chatbots and CLI interfaces, although, I will defend the CLI for the rest of my days.
Going down with the ship on CLI.
I am totally, yes. I'm noun, then verb, not verb,
buddy.
then noun.
That market backs you up into CLI is coming back. It's back.
It never left, Mitch.
It never left, exactly.
It's always there. It's always going to be there. But I think Peter actually, when he envisioned what was OpenClaw at that time, that was the idea, was to interface with it with what he used, which was, I think, Telegram. And so he built it. Yeah, basically, I want to be able to chat with what I used to chat. I want to have something running 24/7 that's always listening to that chat and is also plugged into other assets that I might use, like my calendar, let's say, or my email or whatever. And it's a pretty simple idea, is it not? And we've had all these technologies for much longer than Peter has been working on this project. And he's not alone. And when we get to the end of our session, the tech I want to call out is one of those alternatives for this. And there are many. And you and I and anyone that's listening to this podcast could stand up our own version of OpenClaw this weekend and have it running. And maybe that's actually a good idea. You remember when we used to do build recursive models or regression models? Just by hand.
Some of my regression models were recursive, but yes, you're right.
Where's that minimum? Where's that local minimum? Oh, it's everywhere. Yeah, it's definitely, I think taking what you and I talked about with Claude Cowork, which was that idea that AI should live where you live and work alongside you or in place of you, um, however you want it to work. You could set this up and Cowork up the same way to basically say, these are the limits. This is what I trust you to do for me,
Yeah.
and then let it go. And then that's a great idea. Well, assuming you secure it.
Yeah, well, along the way, it'll get secured, we hope. So what it makes me think of, Brad, is that okay, so this happened for productivity, tool, if you're a productivity assistant, if you want to classify Claude that way.
Yeah.
I think you can use it for much, much more than that, of course. But what's the next thing? I mean, this only happened. I'm gonna suppose this. The supposition is that this only happened because you can build it that quickly in the technology that we have now. You couldn't have done it 2 years ago, this quickly, that expansive, that much capability, and get it out. So what's going to be the next thing? In the database world,
Mm.
what's the thing that everybody assumed that you couldn't do because it just took too complex, took too long, or the data analytics world, or the communications world? What are we
Mm.
going to see the succession of these kinds of wow moments saying, okay, that was not something we ever thought would happen? It isn't necessarily a new idea, but it's done in a really um, less friction, interesting,
Clever,
very easy to
unanticipated.
adopt, clever, exactly, and catch a storm in whatever that is, medical
Yeah.
diagnosis. You can say, like, what is going to happen? I think it's turning our world upside down, and maybe in a good
You
way.
would really, I would welcome that. And I think everyone who's a practitioner working with databases in particular as just one technology area would agree that wouldn't it be great if you could wake up tomorrow morning and not have to think about your query plan or shards or how your indexing is working and all of those DBA kind of things. And you would think, therefore, that, because this is a technology that we have literally kept, close to the vest for 70 some odd years or longer, seemingly, that, it would be rife for disruption. And yet, like the CLI, it persists, the complexity, I should say, persists because at some point, the details matter. And when you're talking about, data within a company and what that means to a company in terms of, what it represents and the risk that it poses if it's not managed properly, those details matter. If you screw up with your Claude bot and it accidentally spams everyone in your, email lists, you may lose friends and influence. But, at the end of the day, it's things like that do happen in real life too, not just in the virtual, agentic world. But with a database, those small things that matter the most, I think can be abstracted but never eradicated because they do matter. And so, from in my research area, I see all the time these same ideas playing out that we're seeing with things like Cowork and things like OpenClaw. In that we're trying to build another layer of abstraction that allows the practitioners to stop thinking about the syntax and start thinking about the intent or the outcome, what they want to happen. I want my data pipeline to keep running. Might be a nice intent and outcome.
Be nice
And
when
yeah,
when it works that way. Yes.
it's supposed to, but it always did. It was supposed to work that way, but technology is always shifting. It's always moving, and because of that, there are unknown unknowns that are always going to bite you. And I do believe that the tooling we're talking about, you and I talk about every week, is capable of not just smoothing out and removing some of the barriers and the friction you talked about, but actually eradicating some of those unknown unknowns, or at least addressing them in a more flexible, more comprehensive, and more immediate way than we mere humans can.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
will they, evolve into that? I think in small pockets, yeah. I think that, and it's always the case with any sort of scientific endeavor, you need to have a circumscribable universe that you can work with to understand, and then you can make it predictable, and then you can automate based on that. And so, for specific tasks like query plan management, let's say, we've been working on automating that for a long time. And agentic AI generative AI and agentic, application of that idea to generative AI is making that better. So I think we'll just see that across the board, man. It's not going to make databases no longer matter, because they're always going to matter. And even if you say, well, let's just switch to object storage, we don't actually need relational databases anymore, it's just the file system anyway, you're still going to be imposing some sort of structure on top of that, because the details matter. Knowing that you write a record, having that, yes, it did get written, even if I lost connectivity, matters.
Still have to have some governance and some security and some data protection and some data backup and recovery, and all that's true. And then the other side of the coin is, what if data doesn't have the same gravity that it does today? Maybe what if it could move much more easily, right? That's one of those take away constraints. You hear me talking about constraints all the time.
Yeah.
And when constraints get removed, that's when things really drastically change. Just like, the value of code today has gone down, is going down every day, not because the code itself isn't valuable, but because your ability to produce it isn't the value of writing it by hand. Right?
That's what's collapsing, much not code.
Yeah. And so, it's I may have said this before, when I first started with these tools, my first reaction was, wow, pretty much, maybe not this moment, but pretty much if there was anything that I wanted, I could probably build it if I wanted to do that. If not today, I certainly will be down the road. And not to say everybody's going to have their own email client that they're going to build by hand themselves. Maybe they will someday. But
if they really care about it, they will.
Yeah. It kind of like, if I don't like it and there's not one on the market, I could say, make it like this, but I want it to be this way. And, that's can be true of many, many things. So let me ask you, if you were going to start out today and you were going to, I want a AI productivity assistant, and I could go frontiers if I'm an enterprise customer with OpenAI. I could go co-work with Anthropic. I could do, the Microsoft. I could do, Agentforce. I could do all of these things. So there's a business context and a personal context. Let's talk about it in the personal context. Would you start out with Claude Code today if you were starting from scratch? Would you do, Open Claude, or would you do something else? Would you start out with, I'm going to vibe code it and build my thing, and maybe I'll try it in Open Claude later, or I don't know. What
Well,
would you do?
I think knowing that it's a part of OpenAI would lead me as an enthusiast, playing around at night on the weekends, looking somewhere else, just because we all, especially those of us who've been in this industry for a while, do tend to see things through a bit of a cynical lens. And if you are a proponent of Richard Stallman and the ethos behind suckless open source, free and open source software, you might question this acquisition. But it's already happened. It doesn't matter. And that's the beauty of open source, by the way, is that how many forks are there already of OpenClaw? Thousands of them. And that's going to be the case going forward. And there are a number of alternatives to play with. And that's the beauty of technology. And like you say, if you collapse that time to, value for building something, then why shouldn't you try this on your own? Why shouldn't you say, for my use case, what I want it to do, I don't need all of OpenClaw. I don't need it to work with 3,000 connectors and all that. I just have one use case that I want it to do. You could, I think, in very little time and with some degree of confidence, build something yourself. So I would build it. I would build it myself. I really would. I would just rook up with my favorite, Agentic CLI, whatever that is. Let's say Vibe from Mistral, for example. It doesn't have to be Codex or Claude CLI. And I would just learn how to build an agentic plane, a control plane, an agentic control plane, because that's a fascinating area just to dig into, like you and I were talking about, with how you manage memory, how you build in connectivity to different sources of information and take action in different modalities. That's fascinating.
I think that's one of the things that, perspective is worth 80 IQ points, as Alan Kay, the Apple fellow, used to say. I don't know who
Yeah.
discovered water, but it wasn't a fish, right?
No.
It goes way back. Anyway, when you and I approach it, like I'm sure a lot of people do, which is, I not only want that tool, but I want to understand it, and I want to understand
Yes.
what it takes to
Yes.
do it. And you mentioned agent control planes and things like that, and I have this concept of observability-native, and
Oh
so I'm
yeah.
already like in the stuff that I'm doing, like, okay, so I'm gonna go like build my own version of this and see how I would do it, right, or what you could do, or what some of the constraints are, or you taking it the next step. Well, not that I'm going to contribute it all back to try to become the next OpenClaw famous developer. Maybe I would, but I'm
Some
really
people
doing it
might
for my
want to.
own
Yeah.
learning and experimentation, right? So there's that whole
Hmm.
wanting to know, what could I do? How would it work? There's that part of it. Well, your general everyday user. I mean, I think you're going to talk about, um, and then one of the segments of sort of like the easier, the OpenClaw for Dummies version, not to disrespect anything, but if you know what I mean.
Well, that's what
That's
Peter
the
wanted to
innovation, right?
build, right? He wanted to build something that his mom could use. That was his idea.
Yep. Yeah, I'm very much of the, do I just like plow down and go do an OpenClaw instance, or like do I keep doing what I'm doing? And I keep doing what I'm doing, which is building it myself, because I rebuild it multiple times. And one of the reasons why I do that
Yes.
isn't that I'm
Yeah.
not happy with it, is how I built it to today. If I use today as the example, and 6 months ago is a much different process using the same tool. It's just new generations of them, right? Whether it's
Mm.
Anthropic or OpenAI, Codex or Gemini, is the ability and the things we've learned about doing plans and things like that, and how to better instruct, control the memory of these systems, of these tools. It's doing it today
Yeah.
is much different experience than even 6 months ago. It's odd to say that, but it is true.
Well, it is, because like 6 months ago, if I spent the weekend building a tool to do something like just drill down into fractals, because we all have done that. So
Because
I
we've
want
all
to
been dying
fly
to
through
do
the
that.
fractal in real time. That's what I want. But in the past, if I had concluded, after 2 days of work, that wow, that really wasn't the greatest approach that I took to building this tool, I would never have thrown it out. I would have been like, let's just keep working our way toward getting what I want with what we have.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that collapse of time to value with agentic, code generation, what is the loss? Just time and tokens at this point. And that is
Definitely.
increasingly a shrinking, asset in terms of cost and time. So I would
Well,
just redo it.
yeah, to your point, my experience, yours probably too, is when you redo it, you can do it faster the second time, the third time, the fourth time,
Yeah.
not because
Yeah.
you just know it better, you know what you want better. Yes, that's a big factor, but the tools have changed. I mean, I'm not sitting here arguing with whatever model about, no, that's not right. That's not correct. That's not what I was describing, or you didn't do what I asked you to do. You're not dealing with the same level of things of, yeah, you keep coding the wrong error, fixing the error that you keep breaking, or breaking what you fix. Those
Actually,
things
sorry,
go
Mitch.
away.
Which
You move on.
AI are you using? Because that still happens to me.
Well, no, you really want to know? Okay, no, no. So I've right now I'm doing my development in Claude. I mean, that's what I'm using at the moment, and I think it's 4.6 extended or whatever it is. The thing kills. It's just like, wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
it cranks, and there are some really good things about Codex and Gemini and what they do as well. It just kind of, the ball that moves around a little bit. It's like fluid in a jar. You just keep shaking up, and this one's at the top now. But that's why I did, is I wanted to see, like, okay, what's the state of this? It's been a few months since I've done anything with it. And it's like, ooh,
Yeah, you got to get to know it. You have to learn the ins and outs. You have to. It's
yeah.
just like dating back in high school, college days. You need to get to
You
spend
dated
time
in
to
high
get to know
school,
somebody.
college? Okay, I was doing computers, but all right. No,
I'm
I'm
told.
kidding. No, I didn't date in high school, college, but yes, okay. Not to jump on the stereotype, but it's a stereotype.
For a
Okay,
reason. Yeah.
for a reason.
Actually, that makes me think about calling out old acquaintances, and you and I forgot when we started today's podcast because we're so enamored with Peter and Sam's getting to know one another that we
Mhm.
forgot to do our new segment on the call out.
Boy,
Which, by the way,
jumped the
if
shark
those of
there.
you we went under the shark. It's not two words; it's one word. To call out, like in text, to call attention to
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
did you mind? Let's stop and do it before we forget. move on.
Yes,
Move on to the next
apologies
thing.
to our audience. I vibe coded my way right past the call out. So let's back up here. It's time for the
Yeah,
call
this
out.
is live. Yeah.
There you go. Go for it, Brad. Call out.
So mine is a surprise for me. I took a briefing from a company called Quest Software, which is a bit of a large company, global company that has quite a
Yeah.
history. And they are very much interested in what you and I were just talking about with, what is the gravity of data? What does that look like going forward in an agentic era? And so they just are getting ready to, by the time this goes live, it will have gone out, this new solution from them called the Trusted Data Management Platform, which you're like, yeah, there are a ton of those. And yes, there are. I actually am going to be publishing a new Signal report on said data intelligence platforms in just a couple of weeks. But what's interesting about this is they're really focusing on creating what they call an automated data product factory. So we've heard about AI factories,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
this is a data product factory, which everyone that's a data practitioner or knows one will have like seen them or have lamented themselves the fact that how difficult it is to create data products, even though it is a grail, that is something we all want. But you know push comes to shove, you're like, oh my gosh, just get them access, get them something that works, and let's call it a day, and we'll come back to that problem later. um, but so if you can build data products, especially if you can like tag on SLAs and let's say contracts to say that it's going to do this and that, and this is what it represents, and those are important things to business. That's what Quest is really shooting for here, which I find very laudable, and I wish them luck with this. It looks, from the short intro I've seen to it and demo, it looks like it's a very solid step in that direction, and something that will alleviate a lot of pain for DBAs in particular, and any data practitioner, frankly.
Excellent.
What
Well,
about
I'm
you? What's
excited to
your
see
call
that.
out this
Yeah.
week?
I actually have two, and both actually do come from briefings as well. And some I
Mm,
can talk about, some I can't quite yet. But two of the really interesting, and actually I had three really interesting between IBM and Red Hat and GitLab. And you talk about different companies at different stages of their development. Of course, Red Hat's part of IBM, but they still kind of operate, at
they
least
are Red Hat.
product-wise, on their own flow, if you will. But what the trend that I think is happening is, we're all enamored with chips, and then we're enamored with data centers, and then we're enamored with all the stuff that it takes to run a data center. And then eventually we kind of get to, oh yeah, we need to run things on this, right? What are we going to put on this
What are we going to
hardware?
use this for?
Oh yeah, back to software. What was that again? Let's think about that a minute. And I was I sort of jumped my own project here because I talked about the agent control framework, plane control framework that I'm working on, that I will get to you to review. But I jumped it ahead of it and said, no, I'm going to do this idea of observability native first. And the concept is
Native.
native, meaning its observability is built into the whole stack from the beginning, whether it's development or what you're deploying operations in your code, in this everywhere in the stack. Because in a world where everything can change because of agentic and processes and AI, and any part of that stack can be replaced at any time, and the
Yeah.
non-deterministic nature of generative AI, watching telemetry at the end of the trail, the river's been polluted by the time it gets to you. Your chances of stopping something just decrease dramatically, right?
That you may have
So if you're
figured out what
instrumenting
happened
it, yeah,
to prevent it from
you're playing
happening.
detective for something you may not have any data
Right.
for
A
because you didn't
crime that will
capture
never
the
be
right stuff.
recommitted.
Exactly. Yeah. That repo got blown away and it's already something else, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's not to be, too overly optimistic about it, but I think we're at a point where actually we can build in telemetry and observability in everything as it's being built. And that's what you see vendors stepping up to try to do to get earlier in the
Mm.
development lifecycle, whether it's a Dynatracer or Harness or Red Hat and IBM and GitLab. They're all figuring out how to be part of the whole ecosystem, not the slice, just the slice that they've figured out they want
Yeah.
to be part of, they want to own. Yeah, they still want to own that, but they know they've got to participate in the full life cycle. And so just a kudos to those companies, all of them that I've mentioned, who are really thinking aggressively about AI, not just to hop on the latest, OpenClaw bandwagon or vibe coding bandwagon, but to really think about how do they rethink their product strategies and
Mm.
reshape it so they are part of how software gets created, how it gets tested, and how it gets deployed, how it gets designed and thought of, because that loop is going, and pretty soon, if you're not in it, it's too late. It happens too fast. It's too late for you to get part of it because it's already come up with another way of doing it. So I think they're doing it out of necessity, but also out of opportunity. So lots of call outs there. But I thought you definitely expect a trend, and now it's happening. It's like interesting to see it come together.
Do you
So,
think, Mitch, that this, because I love that idea of innate observability, and even with like OpenClaw, for instance, Peter built into that this observability where every single transaction gets documented, so you can
hmm
replay what went wrong later on,
hmm
or
hmm
at least understand it. And I think you could use that to understand what's happening as it's happening, as you
hmm
said in the stream. But do you think that if every piece of software that gets built and gets conjoined within this, control plane, will need the control plane to be sort of a, like with catalogs, you have a catalog of catalogs idea. Will we have a control plane of control planes wherein every
hmm
component is transcribing what it's doing to be documentable? But then that harness, not just harness, sorry, that control plane itself is the master of that. Do we need that?
I think that's one logical line of thought, and I was thinking that way for a while, and I thought, you know
Mm,
what? In our world, there is no one product that dominates a company in large companies. They have everything, right? So they're not going to sign up for name it, Microsoft to control everything, or Dynatrace to control everything, or
yeah, yeah.
OpenAI to control everything. Even if they wanted to, just like everything else, we are an Oracle shop. Well, we just bought this company. Now we're not. We're a Microsoft and an Oracle shop, right?
We're a
So
little less
it's
Oracle today.
yeah, we're just squeezed it a little bit, maybe a lot, depending on how much you bought. So I think the world we have to anticipate and expect is a control plane of control planes, a multi-dimensional, as it's called. This is the multiverse of control planes, if you will,
Yeah, yeah.
essentially. Um, which may sound like chaos, but on the other hand, that's the world we're ending up in. I think that's unavoidable. So now, how do control planes talk with each other, and how do they
Mm,
each operate within their own domain? And then when they intersect, either intersecting in a good way or intersecting conflicting way, how does that get resolved? And I think the reason why that's possible to do now is everything doesn't have to be monitored after it's already been built and done. Is you can
mm.
have observability happening in the system, of the system, by the system, by external agents, whatever it is, and be able to direct what's happening while it's happening. Let's say an agent, makes a call to an LLM and gets a wacky answer, but the guardrail didn't catch it. But you have an observability guardrail that will also tell you something wacky happened. Let's redirect that agent for a moment, have it do something different, or have it apply another agent, check its work, or whatever the response is.
Yeah.
So it's a much more of an organic kind of live system, as opposed to a linear, this happens, and then we catch these things at these point in time. The river doesn't flow one direction anymore. It flows all directions with, I think, the world we're going to. As
Wait,
crazy as
isn't that a
might
flood?
sound. Yes. Yeah. It's called a tsunami. Or a mudslide in California, whatever you want to call it.
But it's okay, because then you're not going to hit yourself on rocks. You have room to swim.
Yeah, I didn't say it would be easy, but and so it's not like that's not happening tomorrow. But it seems to me, whenever I think like, yeah, this is going to be the thing that wins, it doesn't usually happen. That's pretty rare for a thing to win. Even in the mobile world, there's still Android and iOS. There's still two of them, right? And there's, the chances of one of them truly, really dominating isn't going to happen, I don't think. Could happen. Maybe if Tim Cook gets elected president, then we'll have iOS on everything.
Right. I mean, Linux dominates.
Well, that's the choice of the people. That's the people.
and everyone who's building servers and mobile operating systems and Chrome OS and every other OS, it seems, except one. It is like a multi-technological landscape, where you have to be adaptive and you have to strive toward building software that, as you just described so eloquently, is able to see itself, to have some internal reflection, like I rarely do myself as a human, but as I strive to do,
self-aware.
right? To be able to say, maybe if I did this, I might be better off. Let's try it.
So when we evaluate software in the future, we'll be evaluating a lot the things we do now, plus the EQ, emotional quotient. What's the emotional
That's right. It'll be free association on the couch for your software. Yes. How does that make you feel, Mitch?
It's all good.
So we should.
Back when I was a young boy, no, that's a whole nother problem. But
oh dear, yeah, that sounds dangerous.
Different kind of podcast.
Indeed, but
anyway,
we should do our last segment before we go. Because since we changed our order around so much, we might as well keep going down that.
Up. So all right, so time for the drop.
Okay, it's time for the drop.
Alrighty, I don't remember if I went first last time. I'll jump first time and then you can jump in. So I mentioned I have a couple things coming out, the agent control plane framework, and then also the observability-native ideas. And I'm excited to share that, not just to get it out the door, but also get some real tests of it and people to say, this is crap, this makes sense, make it better this way, we like this, whatever. But my hope is to make what we work on, Brad, as something that people can look at, use as a guide or as a framework for testing and evaluating what's happening in the market right now, using the frame of what we know as analysts and also our own background and experience. So that's a big one. And then kind of the other one is just March is right around the corner and I start traveling again. I haven't traveled too much. So I'm getting back out getting the band back together. Like, okay, what do I have to have in my suitcase again? What do I have to be ready for to leave at a moment's notice? So
you'll figure it out once you get there. Don't worry, Mitch. It'll be okay.
It'll happen. It's like riding a bike. I'll fall right back into it. So anyway, so that's my drop. How about yours?
Yeah, same here for the travel. Looking forward to that. It's nice to see colleagues and to work with the vendors that we get to spend time with. I feel very fortunate in being able to share in their everything they share with us and the knowledge they have to impart is wow. But yeah, so weekend project. You know how I have said I will not do OpenClaw just because I don't have the time or energy to put into doing it right and doing it in a way that I feel confident that it's the security is set up, that I could trust it. However, that said, I want to try this with an alternative. I mentioned this a couple times today. That I want to play with one of those alternatives, and the one I'm looking at right now is called Nanobot, which comes out of a Hong Kong university. And the reason is twofold. First is it's written in Python, like 98%. So I like Python. I feel comfortable reading Python much more than TypeScript because as you know, we've talked about, I hate semicolons. But the point is this is the second part is it's only like 4,000 lines of code. It does, it's not as aggressive as OpenClaw in terms of its scope that it wants to accomplish, but it does the same thing. It's the same kind of agentic system, but it's 4,000 lines of code. And I think I could get my head around that a little bit better than I could with the like 430,000 lines that OpenClaw is sitting at right now. Woo.
Nanobot's not going to start its own religion or create a political party.
Well, unfortunately,
the communist Chinese or
right. We should not kid ourselves. Every model you interact with, every software that you use has a perspective, and it came from someone or some group of people, and they have their agendas and objectives.
Yep.
So always understand who you're dating. It's the important thing here. but
choose your friends wisely.
You do, and so I'm choosing Nanobot very carefully from that regard. And it's interesting because it actually has built in the ability to participate in the what was it called, Molt Book, social media, social network. The Reddit for these Claude bots,
the Reddit,
and
the Tinder
oh my goodness,
of OpenClaw.
yes. Let them date one another. I'm fine with that. Yeah. So that's my drop. Is I'm looking forward to standing that up on a nice UTM container on my spare computer, little Mac Mini, and let it go.
Because God forbid you can't get one for 3 weeks right now.
No, the wait lists. Yes.
Yeah. Everybody's digging out their old Intel-based Mac Mini. It's like, I could do it on this, but anyway, whole nother thing. Well, cool. Well, good. Hey, kudos on, we had our first guest last time joining us, and we appreciated having folks here, and we hope that others will consider being a part of our broadcast, part of our podcast here. So if you're interested, reach out to us at agentsofdev at futurumgroup.com. And of course, check out our research on the futurumgroup.com website. And we thank you very much for listening and following and just tolerating maybe some of the points here and there too, and just going along with us for the ride. It's been a lot of fun. So, and it's a lot of fun because I'm doing it with you, Brad. So thanks for being part of it too.
As our producer Corey just reminded me, we're definitely going places. We will be back with an episode we might call Agents After Dark, given the topics that we've been talking about on this one. So Thank you all for joining us on this crazy journey. We love having you here.
We may have to start rating our episodes. So okay,
that's right. NC-17. Yes.
M. All right. Take care, everybody. I'll see you next time.
Control, this is Agent Dev. I'm in position.
Copy that, Dev. Stand by for go.
Standing by.